All right, Stephen A. Tom Brady says he has empathy and he respects people for doing whatever they choose to do. What's your reaction to what you just heard from him?
Well, I appreciate him saying that, and I thank him for his words. He certainly should be applauded for that element of what he said. My issue, Lewis and Max, is that I think that, we constantly look at the modern-day athlete and professional athletes as a whole throughout history, to be quite honest with you, and not just with them, but particularly as it pertains to them. And we say, to whom much is given, much is required. And I think in the case of Tom Brady, he usually passes the baton on things like that. And I understand it from the standpoint that he's paid to play football, obviously, paid to be great, trying to go out there and win Super Bowls and what have you. And some people are going to be reluctant to speak up and speak out on certain issues. Certainly Michael Jordan was criticized for that on many occasions in the past. Tiger Woods has been criticized to some degree about that in the past, along with a plethora of athletes throughout American history. The thing that I find unique about Tom Brady, however, is that he is the face of the NFL. And when the NFL is going through big-time issues, it would be nice to see him step up and take a position, whatever that may be, as opposed to just going along and playing along. It would be nice to see him take a stance and to speak intelligently and articulately about it, which I obviously know that he's capable of doing. It's a choice. He has the right to make the choice that he did, but I'm just talking about my personal wishes. Because if Tom Brady stood up and took a stance, no matter what that stance is, the world would have to pay attention because he's that significant, he's that important, and more importantly, he has the resume, the cachet, and the respect. Whereas if he were to say something or do something, we would inhale it and embrace it with a level of depth, and obviously, just sensitivity. Because it's Tom Brady that we're talking about here. And I think far more often than not, he's been willing to just say, look, I'm just here to play football. I really don't want to get into all of that, and sort of be oblivious or distant from things that are really resonating in the world of sports and beyond. And my personal preference would be that I wish that he would speak up more and take a position on various issues, because God knows many other athletes in other sports have been compelled to do so. And it would be nice if he were compelled to do so as well.
Tom Brady leaves me with the impression that if you cut his head open, you would find a football inside. And he is, every thought, it seems to me, is bent on winning the Super Bowl. Like he's trying to win his next game and eventually win the Super Bowl. So when he is asked a question like this, his thoughts seem to be bent toward answering it in such a way that could bring his team together, not divide them, and that he can lead. But it's on the football field. So his answer, while I like what he said, how could you criticize someone saying that sports teaches empathy? That in order to lead, in order to play on a team, in order to be successful, empathy is very important. And so he has empathy for teammates, even if he doesn't feel exactly as they do. He has empathy for them and therefore tries to understand where they're coming from and supports them in their protest, just as he would like to be supported if he doesn't protest, because he thinks that empathetic connection in a team and among teammates is important, and he thinks sports teaches that lesson. Of course you applaud that. That's a very good message. But it is said in service of him leading the Patriots. Everyone has to understand that. That's why he gives that kind of non-committal answer. It's an interesting answer. It has a good message, but he doesn't quite take a stand, does he? There are levels to this, as Meek Mill says, Stephen A., and Tom Brady is among the greatest leaders in the history of American team sports. I think there's an even higher level than him, however. I think about Bill Russell. Bill Russell, and by the way, it's not simply because Bill Russell, I may agree with him politically. It's that Bill Russell led, at least as well as anyone who ever lived, on a team that won the championship every year, he played at something like 21 game sevens. Think about that, or deciding games. So when you get to a deciding game, the teams are usually about the same. Who wins, right? The guy with the best player, the guy with the best leader, he was 21-0 in those games. So you can't argue Tom Brady ahead of Bill Russell as a leader. But Bill Russell also took a stand on important social issues. I think that is the next level of leadership on and off the field. Now, Tom Brady's in a more difficult position because the NFL, both in terms of the ownership and front offices and players and fans, is more conservative, is more in favor of the status quo, as we can see from what's going on in our national politics. And we see the difference in terms of the NBA's reaction, for example, and the NFL's reaction. And so Brady is considering all these things through and running it through the metric that he's using, the prism that he's viewing it through, is how do I bring this together and focus on winning on the field. You can never expect Tom Brady to give an answer that he thinks, while he's answering it, will somehow hinder his team. That's what I mean when I say you cut his head open, there's a football inside, Lewis. So I think everything he says is run through that.